The next part of this lesson, you're going to be bringing in preset 3D models. Now, these were originally created in SketchUp, which is also part of the more advanced instructions. So you want to add group, go to houses for classes, there's 3D models. What we have is different types of 3D models. In the full package, you have a whole collection. And we start out with the Parker 61 left. So we're going to put those in there. And what we're going to do is always do it as graphic only. And you'll see this black splotch. And what you'll do is you'll line it up and get these close. They don't have to be like the other parts of the geometry exactly spot on, but they have to be close. And you'll move them to over the buildings. And so it's the one part of the software, 3D, where you know, if you're exactly on, great, but you know, it's the one area that you don't have to be overly precise, because if you're off by, you know, a half a foot or a foot, nobody's going to notice that. So I brought in my left ones, and then I'm going to bring in the right ones. And you'll do the same thing. You'll use the middle button and the right button to rotate. The shift right button is counterclockwise, so you could get these things a bit quick. Move them around, set them, and then when we take a look at the 3D again, you'll see the homes appear. And then you can move around with the right, left arrow if you have an Xbox 360 controller, and you can see it starts slowing down. When we didn't have 3D models, it didn't have much to process. Massing is very, very low processing, those buildings. Once we start bringing 3D models in, it's a little bit quicker. And you can see we're a little bit off over here. There's so much going on in the 3D, I wouldn't worry too much about it, but maybe if you are concerned, you could spend a little bit more time. The 3D asymmetric building is pulled in there, and graphic only. And you can see it's asymmetric. So what you want to do is get it so that it matches the right side. The one side of the building is different than the other, so we can get panoramic views for every unit and have more units on the good side, less units on the bad side. And just bring that up, and you can see those buildings are there. And so that's how easy it is to bring in the 3D models. Another things that we gave you for scale, because nothing in here relates to scale. We don't know, a building could be any size. So what you could do is bring in cars and people. So I'm going to bring a nice gazebo, and I'm going to bring that into a couple of them, graphic only, and again move that so it kind of lines up with that walk there. We're going to put one as we enter the neighborhood here, overlooking the pond. And then, again, gazebos could be any size, so I'm going to add a group, and I'm just hitting G, the hotkey. Now we're going to bring in a Toyota Highlander, and that blank area on the side is the rear. So that's how the 3D model came up. So you'll know which is the front and the rear. And one of the things about these models is sometimes it's hard to tell what's the front and what's the rear. The Highlander happens to be something that is easy to see because of that. Most of the time these models you really got to remember which is the front and the rear when you place these, but that open area is on the rear. Now I'm going to bring in a BMW. Hit G for groups, BMW, low poly. Again, everything is going to be graphic only. And in this one, the right side is the front. So I have to remember that. So as I move this about and put these BMWs in here, you don't want to put a car on a steep slope because then the tires will float. So also be aware of that. The car is going to be horizontal. So this driveway's got some steepness, so that's what the contours show. I'm going to bring in people. Now, a mother and child, and this time I'm going to do something a little bit different, graphically rotated. Graphic rotated. So it randomly rotates this mother and child. And what's nice about people is when you put people on the walks, now you have scale reference not only in cars, but you also have it with people. So I'm going to put some people there, and now we've got some trees. So I'm going to do a low poly. All these trees are low poly, and you can mix them, and I'm going to put some landscaping in here. So I'm going to caution you on landscaping, because I'm going to show you what happens when you just put just a few trees on the plan. A couple here, and then I'm going to put a couple of these in here, and then it's just graphic only, and that's a bigger tree, you can see that. And it doesn't take too many trees before, when you look at it from the air view, it might overpower the plan on an aerial view. It may or may not. So you'll have to experiment with that. But as you move about, you see it's moving a little bit slower. C turns contours on and off. So I'm going to turn them off. And then I'm going to get down to ground level. G gets down to ground. Shift G is 200 feet in the air looking down. And then U for up, D for down. But as I go on the ground level, I'm moving about at ground level. If I stop and I hit S for shadows, it will show shadows when I stop. It doesn't process them when you move. It would slow that down too much. And then as you move, you can start sensing the topography of the land. And again, you can always turn contours on and off to take a look. But now you have a sense of scale, because you have people and now cars, and you could sense just how big this is. Again, shift, forward arrow goes faster, and this is just some basic instructions. U goes up. It goes up slowly at first in case you're on the inside of the building, and then it will go up much faster. The middle scroll button on the mouse scrolls lower, scrolls upper, and then H for horizontal, again G for ground. To control the shadows, you might be on the dark side. T advances time, and if in the setup of the vertical, if you put the right location on the ground, those will be accurate shadows. We've used that in planning commissions to show neighbors, yes, there is no shadows. Shift T goes the other way, and the time of day is shown at the top of the screen. But again, you have to put the correct latitude and longitude and time of the year for these shadows to be accurate. So sometimes we'll change the date and do it month by month in planning commission meetings. So that's all there is to using models on the 3D. And again, you've got to be fairly sparing, because this is video gaming. There is a graphic limit, and you don't want to get too detailed, and this is why we include a lot of the models in the plan. So I'm going to just show you a few more things. The pond is the same texture, so if I go to fills and then go to pond, I'm going to double click that, and I'm going to make it water instead of this blue texture. So we're going to go back into the 3D. Takes it a minute because it's checking the elevations of everything. And we're going to go, I'm using the left arrow on the keyboard to move left. I'm going to go down to the pond, and you can start seeing it shows the reflection of the sky. So that's what water does. Water shows the reflection of the sky. So in the 3D models, we always put lower level basements, because otherwise the homes will float, and that way you automatically get your walkouts, lookouts, things like that. And so we go, and that's part of the instructions on the 3D modeling. But you could get a good feel of what it would take to walk around this site, and then what it will look like from the residential to the commercial. And the way we've laid this out, it becomes an asset, not a liability. And then what it would look like if you're in the store and you're looking out the window, what you're going to see. So what happens is with this type of pattern, the multifamily is in a great place to live, single family is in a great place to live. You've got commercial that conforms to the residential. It's not a liability, and that's using the planning methods that were prescribed in Proferbia and in the advanced training on the site. So you're looking at a completely different era of how you're going to communicate with your client. It's laden with information. You use the charts, you use the 3Ds, and then you can give the file to the client of yours or the city with the LandMentor viewer, which is free, and they'll be able to derive information from the plan and move about at will. Now this is the same site, but with a 3D, a little bit more embellished with 3D models that come with the LandMentor system. And you could see both on the commercial and the residential side, there's a lot more detail on here, and it gives you a lot more sense of scale. And again, we're using fairly low poly 3D models so that you really could get a sense of moving, of what this thing would look like, moving about, without spending too much time generating the figures and then moving around without slowing you down very much. Now, the one thing about buildings is you'll want to take the time to create interiors so that you could look out the windows. So when you brought in this 3D model of the site, those have, of the apartments, those in particular, every one of the apartments have windows that you could look out on, and primarily from the kitchen. And that's part of this new era of Proferbia, is how do you tie interior views to outside views, and what would that look like from the first floor and then going up to the second floor, and again just tapping the U button to move up, and then from the third floor, or hit G for go back to ground. So these models would give you an idea of the flexibility of the software. Again, if you had shadows on, you could get some nice stills as you stop, and then just get screen clips of the images that you want. There's other models, there's solar panels, there's airplanes flying, gives you a little sense of height, airplanes on the ground in case you have airports, wind generators, playgrounds, things like that. So you can create your own models. It's just that the models that we supply, they have fairly low poly, and they give you good performance if you don't go crazy with them and use them too much, and it will really make a nice looking rendering. Another little thing is you could actually go below ground. You have to hit Control D and then go, it'll break through the ground, and then as you go down you'll see the basements, tree roots, and things like that. And when you use utility design, some of the utilities will also show up. Another thing you could do is preset points. And again, I'm starting to use now, I'm using the Xbox 360 controller. You can see it's a little bit smoother than the keyboard, and you can do some things like slide over, but it's basically the same controls, except you're using the Xbox 360, and it just gives you a little bit smoother action than the keyboard, because the software does have to read the keyboard, and then you can't use a combination of keys like you can with the Xbox 360 controller.